Quick brown fox ran over the lazy dog? Yep, okay, cool. Okay, so if folks hadn't heard, Ma couldn't make it this weekend. Apparently had an illness in the family that he had to take care of. So Ben asked me to come up and ramble about stuff, and if anybody knows me, yeah, I can talk about firearms type stuff for days and days and days. So yeah, let's get on with it. First things first, I will have a presentation that doesn't have this slide in it. This is not that presentation. I am not a lawyer. I am going to talk about some legal stuff. If you end up in front of a judge and say, Oddball told me I could do this, I want a recording. This is about as political as I'm going to get. I've heard over and over and over again from various folks, including lovely folks in the White House, that, well, the Second Amendment doesn't mean you can just go out and buy a cannon. You couldn't do that when the country was founded. Clearly, somebody had never opened up a history book. And me being the very mature, responsible person that I am, I responded in the only way I could. I went on Amazon and bought a bunch of them. This was my Christmas present for a bunch of friends a couple of years back. In fact, I got one of these little guys. Yeah, it's a little black powder cannon. Yeah, shoots BBs. I wouldn't shoot it at people. I don't think it would actually hurt them unless if you like manage to hit them in the eye.
What's the caliber? Is it like 177?
Yeah, so 177 BBs. Even comes with a little ramrod.
That's great. You leave Peanut alone.
That's right. Of course, everybody's going to go, well, okay, little cannons. What about big ones? And why did this slide not actually take the entire thing? Okay. But that is a full-size Napoleonic cannon. You can buy them. They're a little bit more expensive than this little guy. They're about $1,000, and then you get to deal with building the cart to put it on.
Lumber is expensive.
Yeah, a little bit larger. Well, and that much steel is kind of pricey too. And of course, speaking of lumber, everything's better when it's on a stick, right? So this is a handgun, the original handgun, which was in fact a cannon on a stick. You load up the black powder cannon, light the fuse, point it towards your enemy, and hope and pray. And then, after that, you can use it as a pretty good club too. Of course, a little bit more modern thing that people might not think that you can buy, that you can absolutely buy, is of course one of these things. This particular one is a Mossberg nightstick. It is not a sawed-off shotgun. It has a 14-inch barrel.
Also, it's a cannon.
It is, by legal definitions, a firearm. Oh, and I forgot to mention with the cannons, I did try to look up for an ad for an actual modern artillery piece, which you can buy. It's just, they don't show up for sale very often. Now, you do have to go through the NFA process as a destructive device. But this thing is just the same as buying a Glock or your average bolt-action rifle. These guys, you can have it mailed to your front door. And any black powder rifle or cannon, you don't have to get a background check or anything like that. In most states, there's a couple states that's not true. Again, I'm not a lawyer. Check your local laws. Yeah.
At what point does a cannon become a gun? What is the line there?
That depends on who you ask.
Okay. Well, my guns identify as cannons.
Sure. And usually cannons are smoothbore, so I'm guessing a lot of your guns are not.
The name handgun doesn't inspire confidence.
Another thing you can buy that is just the same as far as the law is concerned as a Glock, you know, the standard instant background check, et cetera, is a Gatling gun.
That seems reasonable, actually.
This particular one is a modern production in .22 long rifle, which is a good part of the reason why it is that cheap. But yeah, as long as the Gatling gun is a hand crank, then it is a semi-automatic firearm as far as the law is concerned.
Oh, okay. I learned something.
You are not to put, say, an electric drill onto the handle. Then it becomes a machine gun, and that's a whole different world. As I said, this is a .22. That's why it's so cheap. If you want one of the big boys, you can get them. Yeah, they're a little bit more expensive, but also that's pushing out a 4570, which last I checked is about $3 a round. So not only is it expensive to get into, it is very expensive to feed. And you know, if you don't want to go quite so fancy, you can get a little hand crank to stick on your rifle.
I bet that's not
I don't know, especially there was a ruling made today, actually, about their new assault weapons ban. So, and that's another one of those. I'm not a lawyer. Even lawyers with specialty in firearms, right now, you ask them a question and they may go, what time is it? What groups do you belong to? Where do you live? It's been exciting in that particular world. And you know, the big question, what about actual machine guns? Yes, you can buy those, sort of. So the caveat on that is there is a National Machine Gun Registry as part of the NFA of 36, that to legally own a machine gun, that machine gun has to be on that registry. The Hughes Amendment of 86 closed that registry. So any machine gun, so you can still legally buy a machine gun, but it has to have already been on that registry. So nothing obviously manufactured after 86, and nothing that wasn't registered before then, which is part of the reason why you can see starting bid at $44,000. It's a little bit aggravating as a firearms enthusiast to see the post-86 dealer samples for things like actual full auto M16s being sold for like $1,200, and then, you know, oh, and here's one that's actually on the registry that I could go and buy for $26,000. Just because that list is closed and they ain't getting smaller. And of course, I'm sure a bunch of us here remember
not a flamethrower.
No, this is a butane torch. That's a flamethrower.
Is that legal?
Yes, yes it is. No background check. It is agricultural. It is an agricultural tool. The flamethrower, the most firearm of firearms that ever firearmed, is not legally a firearm.
What are you trying to say here?
And you know, this is an ad for an honest-to-God World War II M2 flamethrower. You can also get new manufactured ones. In fact, there's a store down the street that sells these. And yes, you can order it off of Walmart's webpage.
3.0 reviews.
And this particular company also makes one that is set up to mount under your rifle or shotgun. Because, you know, that's... and I'm sure that doesn't screw up the balance at all.
Fuck those ducks.
And yeah, I love the look on this guy's face. So, you know, you can own cannons, you can own flamethrowers. So the next thing that people tend to say, well, you can't own a tank. Here's a Chieftain for sale, which, by the way, if you don't know, this is the main battle tank that the British used up until the 90s. So usually I can find ads for a bunch of old Soviet tanks. For some strange reason, somebody has bought all those recently. Although I hear that a few have been towed back behind tractors. It's kind of weird. Yeah, and also, unfortunately, I always try to find the prices for people. All the tanks for sale that I could find recently were, yeah, we'll tell you the price once you talk to us and we know that you're actually legitimately looking. Of course. Well, so about that, I couldn't find any Heinz for sale recently, but in 2015, someone was selling a 6-pack of them on eBay. Honest to God, on eBay. 6 of them, $4 million. I was able to find, however, I could find a used Cobra for, let's see.
1.9. Yeah. 2 mil.
Yeah, 2 mil, which, yeah, that's kind of a good deal, right? Incidentally, for the tanks and for these things, the weapons are pretty much always disabled. There are ways that you can legally make those weapons live again. There are, and in fact, there's a few private companies around the country. One in Texas, I want to say one in South Carolina, and there's one that's setting up shop over near Sevierville, where you can drive a tank, and if you want to pay enough money, they'll let you shoot the cannon on it. And the last of it is fighter jets. How about an F-4 Phantom? The Iranians are still using them, right? But yeah, there's a lot of things that people talk about, especially when it comes to firearms and military equipment and stuff like that. That they say, well, you can't do this. Really? You sure about that? And like I said, the you can't just go buy a cannon thing. It's one of those that I hear people say that and just think, okay, you don't know enough to be part of this discussion. Go get some education on the discussion.
That was on the list.
What's that?
Oh, I was just making a list of things I should not have.
Oh. Yeah, I thought you were saying that I was on the list, and I am on so many lists. And actually probably a lot of you are too, because I found just about all these listings earlier today and from this hotel. So I ended up doing what I do a lot of times and actually talking really fast. Does anyone have any questions or anything you'd like me to look up for you or switch back to? Yeah.
What about the military robot dogs? Can we buy those?
The little military, like the bomb.
I think there's some
Yeah.
Chinese knockoff dogs. I've seen them.
Yeah.
Like they've got some cheaper.
Yeah.
It's cheap reason.
Those are a little bit harder to find on the used market, especially the bomb disposal ones. They tend to be really used when they show up. But yeah, if you have the money, you can.
What's the drones?
So.
Flying drones.
So are you talking about the ones that the U.S. military uses, or the Predator drones? I don't know if any. I don't think any of those have hit the used market, and they probably won't. U.S. military stuff since Clinton, if it's designed specifically for the military, they tend to just shred those instead of selling them. Which is part of the reason why surplus Humvees are now super expensive. Back in the late 90s, you could buy a surplus Humvee for like 14 grand. And now you're looking at like, what, 70, I think?
But that's like all used cars, right? Like,
Well, that's fair. And if you've ever actually been in one of those military Humvees, you might be wondering why somebody would want to do that. But yeah, but that said, to tie in with the talk I gave last year, if you look at what has been going on in Ukraine and also a little bit what's been going on in Israel and Gaza, there are a lot of folks that have weaponized off-the-shelf commercial drones. Specifically, it's been a favorite of the Ukrainians to take a commercial drone, and they have a bunch of old Soviet mortar shells that, from what I understand, were never particularly great. But they can take those shells, 3D print guidance fins on them, and have the drones fly them over over Russian troops, and have done pretty well at pinpoint drops.
So it's the nose that activates those? Like,
Yeah, mortars. Mortars pretty much once they're activated, yeah, they're contact. Yeah, and Hamas has done the same thing, just using frag grenades.
Yeah, I think warfare is changing in a scary way.
Oh,
Because of that,
yeah.
Just in the last fucking 5 years.
Yeah,
I mean, that's crazy.
yeah, drones, and like I said, not just the big Predator drones or whatever the Iranian drones are called.
Price is driven down to throw away. It's wadding.
Yeah, when you can, like I said, you can get a commercial drone for like $600 and have it carry and deliver a small explosive and drop it into someone's tent.
So anti-drone guns.
That is very much being developed right now, and the good news with most of the commercial drones as a defender is there's a bunch of ways to. They're fairly easy to jam.
I've seen the guns they have, like there's 6 or 7 antennas in like a circle. And
Right,
you just
but
like jamming up.
but on the other hand, there's also the thing of, and one of the things with AI becoming more and more popular, it's getting down to where, yeah, you can get cheap drones that you can just say, yeah, go there, and it'll fly itself, at which point
Yeah, but
you can't jam it.
the motor or something? Like, can't you put enough EMI to smoke the magnets or something?
And problem is, you might be able to do that at like 10 feet,
Okay.
but how often is a drone going to be 10 feet before boom?
It's too late if you got 10 feet.
Right, it's entirely too late. You know, when you're talking about like 100 yards or whatnot, you're now getting into the powers where you need to be worried about what are you also doing to you and your buddies around you.
It's coming to that point, it's still using GPS the whole time. So you gotta get Russian to start making GPS signals. They fly from their planes, you know, like they fly from.
That would require the Russians to actually understand any of that stuff, because I mean, at this point, a lot of the Russian pilots are just doing dead reckoning when they're flying now. That's a different political argument.
Next thing will be drones with onboard firmware to locate a radio source and fly with it.
Absolutely, absolutely. I think that's already been going on a little bit, and there are definitely suicide drones that have been used to rather good effect. That are, you know, that's part of the. A lot of people are trying to argue that armor really doesn't have a place in the battlefield anymore. It's just no, but it's one more thing that armored units are terrified of.
Everything on the battlefield has the capability of telling armor.
Yeah. Well, and you know, we're seeing that where if armor is just being out on its own, it gets killed. Sarah.
I don't know about other states. Does Georgia still require you to have your cannons tested every year to use them?
I have no idea about Georgia law. As far as I was aware, it's black powder. How would they know you had it?
Well, if I use them in a Boy Scout camp, they're required to be tested every year to make sure it's safe.
Oh, I'm pretty sure that's take that up with the Boy Scouts.
No, it's not the Boy Scouts, it's the state of Georgia.
Okay.
Just didn't know if they were still doing it.
That's a new one for me.
Let you know if you have cannons and you use them, you get your test them.
There you go. That's my answer. Yeah, like I said, for Tennessee, for personal use, there's no requirement, and since I live in Tennessee, that's mostly what I know. I wouldn't be surprised if someone like the Boy Scouts for insurance purposes would require that. I'm sure an insurance company for a group would say, yeah, if you want us to pay out on any injuries, you're going to have to show us that you've tested to make sure that it's safe, etc. But that's interesting. I'll try to look that up. That's an interesting thing that I didn't know about.
There's some good testing services I know of that test cannons.
Okay, good. I mean, that is also one of those things that, like here in the States, modern firearms don't go through any sort of legal testing or proofing houses or anything like that. If you buy a European firearm, that's that was made in Europe, and especially if it circulated in Europe in private hands, then it absolutely, it will have proofing house marks on it. But like modern firearms you don't have, the manufacturers don't have to submit them to proofing houses or anything like that. So. Sir.
So I was talking to a coworker who's a gun collector.
Okay.
I forget where he stays, but he said he's got a lot of guns. Some of his guns aren't categorized as guns anymore because they're so old and typically need to be destroyed. Like, or something like that. Like if they were to come and try to take it, they would have to destroy the gun.
There are a lot of states where that is, where if a police department seizes a firearm, they destroy them, or it's the policy of that county or whatnot. What you're talking about is falling into antiques, and just because it's old doesn't mean that they have to destroy it. Again, I don't know where exactly your buddy was, but on the federal level and most of the state levels that I know about. Yeah, and just so folks know, it's if the firearm is over 100 years old, I believe, I'd have to look up the statute as to exactly when the cutoff is. But definitely, like, I have a 1876 trapdoor Springfield that was made in 1876. And even though it has a serial number and it uses modern ammunition, yada, 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 it's still not, as far as the ATF is concerned, it's still not classified as a firearm just because it is that old. Any other questions? No. Okay, well, thank you guys very much.
Thanks, Oddball.
And yeah, if anybody wants to actually see the itty bitty cannon, feel free to come up here.